Welcome back to the Power Hour. Thank you for joining us. It is 8 minutes after the hour, wherever you're sitting. We thank you for joining us today, having an inquiring mind and wanting to know the truth, not accepting the news. That's right. And joining us today is Oregon Sheriff Glenn Palmer. Glenn Palmer was appointed Sheriff of Grant County in the year 2000 due to the death of Sheriff Fred Reuser, who passed away 7 days before the general election. He was then elected and began his elective term in January of 2001. He began his career in law enforcement, part-time corrections duty. He's also been canine narcotic dog handler. He went to work for patrolman for the city of John Day, and during his tenure, he attained the rank of senior patrolman. He was, upon being elected sheriff of Grant County, he's been active in pursuing his executive certificate through the Department of Public Safety, and he has probably something that, to his stead, that we salute him for at the Power Hour. Not only did he serve active duty in the Air Force, but he is telling the federal government, not no, but heck no. And we'd like to welcome our guest today, Sheriff Glenn Palmer. Sheriff Glenn Palmer, thank you for joining us in the Power Hour today. Welcome.
Good morning, Joyce.
That's your morning salute there, sir, in Oregon, and you say it's snowing there today.
It is.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, in the Midwest here, it could be worse. Let me tell you, it could be worse, as tornadoes are unbelievable. We're so glad to have you join us today because you have made a stand, unlike many other sheriffs in this country, but more and more sheriffs are starting to see it the way that you do. Let's talk a little bit about who you are and your background to bring you to this point.
Okay. We have, in our county, which is Grant County, I'm one of 36 sheriffs in the state of Oregon, and we have about 65% public lands, which are under the jurisdiction or management perspective of the U.S. Forest Service. There's an additional, I believe, I want to say 17% of that is under the Bureau of Land Management. And our economy and our schools and our county and city governments and our economy thrives off of our public lands. And with the amount of public lands, we have well over 65% of that. We've been faced with more restrictions and less access to our public lands, and it includes road closures, wood permits, grazing, timber, travel management, recreation. One of the things most recently is the travel management plan where Forest Service intends to close miles and miles of roads and exclude people from cross-country travel. And when they go so far as excluding people from public lands, and they have no reason or basis or purpose for that, it kind of got under my skin a little bit, and I started doing a little bit of research, and come to find out that the majority of these roads that have been closed by the United States Forest Service have been done so under, I don't know, I guess a better way to put it is the public's been duped, and we've determined that quite a few of these roads that have been closed over the past 15 or 20 years have been done so, and they had no legal authority to do it. And when we confronted them about it, we were pretty much told that, well, when we put the closures up, nobody said anything, so we just continued to close more roads and close more roads. And now you've got Forest Service law enforcement out there writing tickets on these, and technically these roads are not closed. They should be open to the public. They were paid for by either timber dollars or tax dollars. And when you have a public official standing behind a badge in a government uniform, and they're arresting people and issuing citations, and then they're putting the onus on the citizen to prove themselves innocent, to go to the Forest Service and determine whether that road was really closed legally or illegally.
Oh, my goodness. Now,
and that's where I've decided to take a stand and say, you know what, I'm going to stand between the people of this county and the federal government, and I can't put up with it.
That's amazing that you are making this stand, because this is not happening in just Oregon or just in your county. How vast is the problem with the Forest Service coming in and saying, we're from the government, we can do whatever we want?
It's happening everywhere. And if some of the emails I've received, that the travel management plan is nationwide, and it said we're one of the last forests in the United States, I believe, to have this implemented. And it's the people do not favor it one bit.
And when you say the travel management plan, this obviously is something that the Forest Service has put out or has made. Is it a rule, regulation, code, law? What is this travel management plan?
I think it's just a national policy that they don't want any altering vehicles or any off-road vehicles, any vehicles leaving a road surface within so many feet to gather firewood or big game retrieval. Anybody that enjoys just off-road riding, and we have nearly, I'd say well over 2 million acres on the Mount Here National Forest right here in our county. And we ask them to show us, well, where's the damage? We do have a couple of areas that are close to a couple of small towns that get a little more ATV use than what it should. Mm-hmm. There's volunteer organizations within this community that we could go in and rehab those areas and put trees and boulders and trench things and replant trees and reseed it and rehab it and get it back to something other than the erosion that's taking place on it. But what I'm afraid of is if they confine us to a smaller area, it's going to have more of an impact on the environment than allowing us to disperse and have more use of our public lands.
Now, as the sheriff of Grant County, you wrote a letter to Teresa Raff, the supervisor of Malheur National Forest, in which you said you are aware that I had sent at least 2 requests to the U.S. Forest Service asking for information that pertains to where the U.S. Forest Service gets its constitutional authority to have law enforcement officers within Grant County. What was the response that you got back from Teresa Raff?
One of the letters, and she actually passed it up to the regional office out of Portland.
Well, I bet.
Which is 6 or 8 hour drive from here. And again, the policies and the drive behind this either comes from the west side of Oregon or it comes from Washington, D.C. It doesn't come from right here in this office. And it's killing us. But back to your question, Joyce. The response I got from the Forest Service was that the sheriff gets, or the Forest Service gets their authority through the sheriff by and through their cooperative policing agreement. And they listed a bunch of other acts and Title 16 and some other stuff that I don't agree with. And I ended up writing them a second letter, and I asked for some clarification, and they directed me to go talk to my district attorney. So I responded back to him, and I said, well, neither of your answers are acceptable in my opinion, and I've been doing some research on my own, and some people have been helping me get some information together, and I believe that the Forest Service does not have, none of the federal government has any constitutional authority within this county, within any county. The Constitution empowers the people, and there isn't anybody at the federal level that can give law enforcement authority to any particular agency or group of people to form their own police department or law enforcement agency.
Yes.
We, the people, empower the sheriff through the elective process, and our Constitution was created by the people to empower the people who empowered the sheriff to enforce his laws, or the laws of the people and the laws of the land.
Now, again, in the letter, you say under Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, the federal government is limited in its powers and authority. Your jurisdiction, as I see it, is limited in nature to the federal building in John Day. How many people support you in that statement? Of course, we, the Power Hour, do, but I mean, how many of your people understand what that statement means?
as far as the public, I've got some people that are upset with me for taking a stand, and they call it another one of my distractions. And I don't have 100% of the people, and I don't think I ever will, whether I'm being elected or somebody runs against me or some of the decisions I make. But I feel there's a lot more support than there is people that are against what I'm doing or what I'm standing up for. And Joyce, I'm not in this for me. Love my job. I make a good wage at it, and money is not the drive why I'm here doing this. I'm to the point where somebody has got to stand up, and we, as a nation or a state or the county, somebody has got to stick their neck out first and try and get something going. And we'll see where this goes. But I've made a stand, and I'm gonna follow through with this. And I would actually like to challenge your listeners, if I could. And one of the things, Joyce, I think that it's very important is that other people in the counties that they live is get a hold of their sheriffs and set up an appointment to meet with them and take a copy of the Constitution into them and give it to them and hold their feet to the fire, make them read it and understand it, because there were some things that I didn't understand, Joyce, that you start diving into it and you start reading it, then it's more understandable.
Oh, yeah. We've got so much to talk about here, and there's so much support from our listeners to you. I can't imagine any of your people not supporting you on standing up for them. We're going to be back after this 4-minute break. Sheriff Glenn Palmer joins us at the Power Hour. We'll take your calls a little bit later at the Power Hour. This is Joyce Riley. Welcome back to Power Hour. Thank you for joining us. It is 24 minutes after the hour. Listeners, I dare say that in every country, or every county in this country, we have law enforcement authorities or regulatory agencies of the federal government that are exerting their influence into the counties where they don't belong. We have one sheriff, and we're honored to have Sheriff Glenn Palmer join us today from Grant County, Oregon, who says no. Just because you say you have the right to come in here doesn't mean that you do. And I think a lot of this comes from some of the work that Sheriff Richard Mack has been doing on the constitutional sheriffs. And it's all in the email blast, and it's also at the website where you can learn more about the Constitutional Sheriffs Association. If every sheriff in this country stood for his people, like Sheriff Glenn Palmer is doing, we would not have the encroachment from the federal agencies as we do today. Now let's go back to what the federal authorities said. They basically came in and said that they could close down certain areas or certain roads. How did they first contact you or let you know that the Forest Service was taking jurisdiction over those areas? Sheriff Palmer.
They came in with public meetings, and the building the federal building down here in John Day had probably 200 to 250 people there to voice their concerns and their opinions and to put public comment into what was happening. And I could almost guarantee there was probably a handful, 4 or 5 people that were in favor of the travel management plan as it was written, because it excludes and limits the people to be out there on the ground and recreating or cutting firewood or picking mushrooms or whatever it may be.
Why would anybody favor the federal government coming in and saying, no, you can't have your own area here?
It's more of an environmental push. It's a hands-off approach, and people are afraid that we're going to injure a tree or damage a tree or cause erosion or which none of those things, even buying through the admissions of the Forest Service, we asked them, show us where the damage is. We want to go look at it firsthand. They said, we don't have any. We can't find it. We can't give you any places in particular. The people that came to this meeting were not allowed to speak and were not allowed to give their public comment to the forest supervisor at the time. And he shut the microphone off, and they broke us up into small groups that you could go give your comment to one of 6 or 8 or 10 people that were there. They conquered and divided. They divided us up, and nobody got to say anything that engaged in any kind of healthy or meaningful public comment.
Wow.
And then they shut the meeting down, and it was over. And this is to be implemented either this August or possibly maybe into January of 2012. The public has been shut down on this. They've made this decision before they had their public meeting. They had all their charts. They had all their documents. They had all their forms already done. These are the roads we're going to shut off. They had color-coded maps. They had their mind made up way before the meeting that this is what we're going to do, and appeasing the public and having them come in and giving them an opportunity to speak to somebody it's a joke and it's a game, and it's not right. That's not the way our system is set up. That somehow we've allowed the table to turn around, Joyce, and the government is telling the people what we're going to do and the way we're going to like it, and we don't have any choice. And that's not the way the America is.
Let me ask you, how many counties in Oregon are facing this same situation, or throughout the United States? How many other counties are facing this travel management plan and perhaps not responding or reacting as you are?
Some of them have had this implemented over the past few years, and I think they're doing a little bit at a time, and it doesn't make such a huge impact where you have a whole nation up in arms, so to speak, that they slowly implement it, kind of like the road closures. They'd close a road here and there, close another road here and there, and next year you'd come back out and go to drive a road or go hunting, go back into your favorite camping area or go fishing or go cut wood. Next thing you know, there's a road closure up, so you go find another place. And over a couple of years, the next thing you know, you've got a gate on that road, and then doggone it, you'd go out and find another place to hunt or to cut wood or pick berries or boughs for Christmas ornaments or whatever you want to pick, or go do on the public lands, go hiking, and next thing you know, the favorite road that you enjoy, they've got a closure on that. And it just, they keep taking a piece at a time and a piece at a time, and it never affected everybody all at the same time. It's affected us all a little different, but nobody saw this coming, and nobody stood up to it, and it just continued to go and continued to go. And then the next thing you know, here we are, they're wanting to close off the remainder, and it's adversely affecting our economy and the public's right to travel.
Okay, after this 3-minute break, we're going to come back and I'm going to ask Sheriff Glenn Palmer, what is the agenda behind this? What are they using this area for, or these roads for? Why is this happening? 29 after the hour, this is Joyce Riley. Stay tuned to the Power Hour. Welcome back to Power Hour, 33 minutes after the hour. Now you can order from the Power Mall. We ask you to order from the good guys. Do business with the people that are doing the right thing. And we have what's called a Power Mall. You can order from us some of the best made in America items that we can find. We also have things like Nuke Protect. That's right. How to nutritionally protect yourself against radiation, should that ever become an issue. And we all know what we're thinking about that. The books that we have at the Power Mall are 20% off, almost all of them, all except for about 5 of them. The books are 20% off, and that includes Sheriff Mack's book. You can take this gun from my cold dead hand. That book also, plus the Constitutional Sheriff's Authority book that he has, and I encourage you to get those, as we have had so many of you provide those to your local sheriffs. We had a major, I can't imagine how many of those went out to sheriffs that we paid for to go to sheriffs. So please, please, please do your part. Got to get educated and got to do the next right thing. Call us at 877-817-9829. That's the Power Mall at 877-817-9829. Or go to thepowermall.com. And remember, Sheriff Mack is going to be in Springfield, Missouri on the 14th and 15th, as I will. I'm going to get to see him and hug his neck in May at the expo that's coming up there. So come see Sheriff Mack at the expo. We're talking today to Oregon Sheriff Glenn Palmer, Grant County, Oregon. It could be any county. It could be any state. We're seeing this happen where the public lands are being taken over by the Forest Service or whatever other agency for whatever reason they may give. Now the question is, why? Why are they doing this? Why are they barricading the roads, keeping you from entering in, like you said, and picking mushrooms and doing such horrendous things as picnicking with your family? What is the agenda? A lot of people think that they're training military troops in these areas, that they are, I don't know, they're having some kind of secret confined meeting. I don't know. I have no idea. But the question is looming in all of our hands. Why are they taking over so many acres of the land that originally belonged to the people? And your response to that, Sheriff, do you have any idea?
You know what? I don't 100% have any idea exactly what I could put my hand on and say this is the reason why. But Joyce, I mentioned something earlier about some of the maps and things that the Forest Service had during this public meeting where the public was not allowed to comment. When you travel out here on our national forest and you look at the map, the boundaries to our designated wilderness areas are very well defined. They're posted, they're marked, and with this new travel management plan, all of those boundaries on those maps have been erased. And there's no distinction between off-limits to motor vehicles and firewood cutting or ATVs and recreation and other forms of recreation that would not be permitted in our wilderness system. That line has been taken out, and there's a color code that includes that wilderness that expands way down into areas where there's been logging activity in the past, there's been recreation in the past, such as ATV operations, snowmobiling, and it just puts a big question mark up there what their intent is. And I think the Forest Service is at the point to where, and our federal government is so broke that I don't know how much longer the Forest Service can continue to operate, and whether or not if they do away with the U.S. Department of Agriculture and turn it over to the Department of Interior and make a national park out of it, if they make the total area off limits. But it does nothing to our communities but continue to kill us. Our counties are almost broke. Wow. Our timber dollars and timber receipts are not coming in. That affects our cities. It affects our schools. It affects our local economy, our business. There's a lot of environmentalism here that doesn't need to take place. People are taking care of the lands. We're not here to clear cut it and to take everything off and to destroy things. Grant County is a very beautiful place. It's a very rich place. We have billions and billions of dollars of dead, dying, and down timber that's either bugs or burnt or so thick that if it does catch on fire, there's no way in God's creation that you're ever going to put it out. It'll burn for days and months. And then the timber that's burnt, they aren't allowed to take it off and do something with it. One of the fires we had here, they went down one of the main roads and they snagged it. And what I mean by that is they cleared all the hazard trees along the road. And they decked those up with the intentions, I believe, to take them to a sawmill and utilize them and make something out of them. And when a certain individual within our county drove down the road and saw they were decked up, they went and filed a complaint with the Forest Service, and the Forest Service actually took those trees and scattered them back out through the woods.
Oh, my
goodness. And those trees are still up there today, rotting and going to waste.
Oh, my goodness.
When our schools, our unemployment, we're the third highest unemployed county in the state of Oregon. And Joyce would be number one if the people that used to work in the mills that used to be here were still here. Those people have had to go somewhere else. So we're holding number three, and it's unfortunate. Our school enrollment here in one of our school districts is down 50% out of a school that typically had 500 to 600 students, and they're half of that today. And they're cutting positions. They're consolidating one school this next year. They're closing a school in a small town 8 miles from here and moving all the kids to the high school, and you're going to have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in with 9 through 12.
You know, let me go back to the issue of originally I think the PR that was given by the Forest Service is we don't want the clear cutting to take place. We don't want, there's too many snowmobilers in here. The ATVs, the all-terrain vehicles are tearing up the area, so we need to protect it and keep it pristine. It was originally sort of in that kind of a movement. It's for the people. We're doing this for your best benefit. Then we get stories about they're training foreign troops in the forest, and we don't know what's going on. But the bottom line is it doesn't make any difference why they're doing it. It's wrong, and it's wrong from the perspective of a sheriff having control of his own area. Let's move the discussion then into the sheriff's authority, because that's where we are now, and that's the battle that you've got on your hands.
Okay, Joyce, and some of the materials I received and some of the educational stuff. I've been a policeman for a little over 25 years, and every day is a learning experience for me, and I still listen and seek advice from others, and I don't know it all. And some of the material I did get, what I learned from this was that the people of our country give Congress the authority to write laws, and we do not give them authority to enforce it. And that's why we have law enforcement personnel. In that venue, the only person that the people directly give our authority to by election for this law enforcement activity, such as arresting and search and seizure and throwing people in jail, is our sheriff. And we do not give directly to police chiefs, heads of police, state police, or any other law enforcement agency. That we give no direct authority to any federal law enforcement agency. Joyce, the sheriff is the unique being given this authority and trust directly by the people. And it has a higher level of authority than any other member of law enforcement, and consequently higher responsibility, higher authority, higher accountability than any other government official. This gives the sheriff authority over federal officials and agents within his or her county, as well as any other government agency or official, as it is the sheriff who has the duty and authority of upholding the Constitution, as well as carrying out the enforcement of our laws and determining if they're constitutional or not. There are a lot of people out there, Joyce, that don't believe that our legislature and our other elected officials would pass bad laws that would hinder us or that have no constitutional merit. But there are tons of laws on our books that are unconstitutional. And all of these laws which are repugnant to the Constitution are null and void.
Yes.
Our courts have ruled on this over and over and over. But yet we continue to have people out there that are shoving this down our throat. And we've got to make a stand before it's gone.
Yes, we do. And we have to support our sheriffs, because in the book written by Sheriff Mack, and listeners, if you don't have a copy of that, it's incredible. It is so decisive as to what the sheriff's responsibility is according to the Constitution, that if you have not gotten one to your sheriff, which I did mine, please do that, because we've got to support our sheriffs in this, because they're looking as though they have some kind of vested interest for why they're making a decision to stand up against the federal government. And of course, the federal government is only there to help us, right? No, they're not. And they're making this encroachment into every state, every county, in every fashion possible. How do we support our local sheriff? And how do we find out which side of the fence our sheriff is on? Do all sheriffs understand their responsibility as to the people and is the highest law enforcement person in that county or in that state?
I don't think they do, Joyce. And again, like I told you earlier, every day is a learning experience for me. And when people bring things into me and they discuss things, I listen and I let them talk, and I learn from that. Going back in the late 80s when I went through the basic police academy here in Oregon, I do not remember ever hearing anything about any constitutional, the Articles or the Declaration of Independence, or any constitutional criteria or anything like that in a syllabus that would teach us the Constitution. But they did mention about the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment and search and seizure and things like that, but they didn't go into great detail as that we probably should have had. And education is power, and I just encourage folks to approach their elected officials, and whether they're county commissioners, their state senators, or whoever they may be, and And we've got to get our government officials and the people that we've empowered back in it for the people and not the government.
That's right. Let me open up the phone lines now. To those of you who would like to ask a question of Sheriff Palmer, I'd like to take the phone calls first from Oregon at 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. Those of you calling from Oregon will go to the front of the line. I want to say that a sheriff cannot possibly meet with all of us. There's just no way. So how do we show our support? Should we be like 4 or 5 of us going and meet with our sheriff? 10 of us? Should an organization meet with the sheriff? How can we call a sheriff on the phone and say, sir, I'd like to meet with you? What's the best way to do that?
You know, if a person wants to do it individually, I just suggest you get a hold of the respective sheriff's secretary and ask for an appointment. You may want to even consider going so far as to do it in a public forum or during the election cycle when they have a candidates forum.
Okay.
Question them in that kind of an atmosphere. These people are elected officials, and they answer to the people, and they need to make themselves available. If they don't, then you need to look to a candidate that does respect the people and what the people want. If you don't have a sheriff that's open to meeting with the public, then you've got somebody that's serving an interest of his own or of some other nature. And we've got to make ourselves available and listen to the people. If we don't, then I think we're going down the wrong trail, and you seriously need to look at getting somebody in there that is there for the people and for the community and what you stand for.
Now, if I wanted to meet with my sheriff and tell him about the book that Richard Mack has written about the county sheriff, if I wanted to take that to him and inform him that he is the chief law enforcement officer, how would I tell that to that secretary? What would I do to be able to get her to think that I'm not some kind of wacko out there that wants to waste his time?
I think being persistent, I think that would be, you know, I couldn't imagine somebody turning somebody away to meet with their sheriff. And that's just not the way that I would conduct business. I mean, they need to make themselves available. But, you know, I'm a small county. There's a total of 5 of us that work on patrol. I've got 11 jail staff and a 41-bed jail, and I'm relatively rural and in a small area. But there are days where I work a little bit more than 9 to 5 and call-outs in the middle of the night, and I have court and I have other duties and responsibilities. But I can return a phone call. I can send an email. There's a whole bunch of ways we can communicate and still be available to these people.
Okay. And the important thing is just to do it. The phone lines are loaded right now, and nobody from Oregon right now, so I'll just tell you that up front. But let's go to John. Who's our first caller? Sue in Texas. Let me go to Sue in Texas. I'm going to move through these so everybody will have a chance to talk to Sheriff Palmer. Sue in Texas, you're on the air with Sheriff Glenn Palmer. Go ahead, please.
Yes, hi, good morning. I think possibly the problem might be the United Nations here, because they do have a program of controlling all the land and rewilding, I believe is the phrase, some of the territories. And I think it's beyond the federal government, because I understand the United Nations is in control of the national parks. So I think they're creeping in slowly but surely to take over a lot of these lands, and perhaps that's the place to look. The Agenda 21, and I believe.
Okay, let me go to our guest, Sheriff Palmer. Are you familiar with the United Nations involvement in all this, Agenda 21, etc.?
Yeah, I've had a little bit of the information in regards to Agenda 21, but I have not had the opportunity to become proficient in it, so I don't know that I could comment to that.
Okay, I think you'll find it most interesting, and I think that probably Sue is right. That is the basis behind a lot of what is happening. Let's go to John in Missouri. Thank you, Sue. John in Missouri, you're on the air. Go ahead, please, with Sheriff Palmer.
I appreciate it, and I thank you very much. It's good to hear your voice and attitude towards this. I want to let you know I ordered some of the Sheriff Mack books. I sent one to a sheriff in another state from a county that I was dealing with. He read the book. I got to go and talk to him. Told him he was the most powerful, highly elected official in the county. He told me that he did what the judges told him to do. I don't think they really realize and understand what they're doing. And I'm wondering about this as a previous caller. Maybe they're considering that this property is now abandoned so they can do with it what they want to do with it, or that Agenda 21 or so on.
Okay, let me go back to what you said about his job is only to follow what the judges wants him to do. Your response to that, Sheriff Palmer?
In Oregon, sheriffs are servants of the courts. We're not subordinate to the courts. If the courts have process for us to serve, warrants to serve, the civil process, according to Oregon Civil Code, they can remand somebody into the custody of the sheriff, and the judge can order that and direct me to take him and incarcerate him. It doesn't necessarily make us subordinate. So I have to disagree with that I do what the judge says. The sheriff is an elected official. He answers to the people and the people only.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're going to be back after this 3-minute break. We'll have a few more minutes with our guest today, Sheriff Palmer. I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I salute him, number one, for standing up to the Forest Service, standing for his people, and then willing to come on the air and talk about it. You have no idea how much respect I have for this man. We'll be back. 3-minute break. This is Joyce Riley with Sheriff Glenn Palmer. Welcome back to the Power Hour. Thank you for joining us. It is 54 minutes after the hour. And in the next hour, we're going to talk to a lady who is saying no to the federal authorities over the issue of food production. You're going to want to hear how she is doing it in her area. That's what we're all about here, is the Power Hour empowers you to stand up and say no. And I'm really appreciative of the fact that he is joining us here today. Let me go to, let's see here, who are we at now, John? Ben in Texas. Ben in Texas, you're on with Sheriff Palmer. Go ahead, please.
It's Sheriff Palmer.
Morning, Ben.
Yes, how you doing? Listen, I'll try to be as quick and to the point because I can see we're nearly top of the hour. I lived over in Curry County for off and on for up until 2008. And I saw exactly what you're talking about. Up there, luckily they had the big fire back in 2000. I forget exactly when.
Yeah, the Biscuit Fire.
Biscuit Fire, right, exactly. Thank you, sir, for reminding me. Okay, that was caused because of brush that was left alone. Secondarily, I lived up in an area called Nasika Beach, just north of Gold Beach, on the house there. Anyway, just want to make a comment. That area up there is owned, those stands are mostly private up there. In other words, that's the land that the forest is in is owned privately. They went in there and cleaned that out as one of the most pristine, beautiful places, probably even as I speak. But I saw a lot of the U.S. Forest pulling the stunts where I'm trying to be rapid fire about this, just telling you about it, and then I'm going to get off the air. Anyway, up there they did pull a lot of that stunt, but a lot of the people, and I'm sorry the sheriff up there in Curry County, I don't know anything about him, because when I went to try to get my concealed carry pistol license, I couldn't get it. I had to go to another county where I was working at most of the time in order to get it, the next county up, Coos County. Secondarily, over in Klamath County, I have a friend who lives north of Klamath Falls. He has seen a lot of the U.S. Forest Service imposing their police, doing the same thing, blocking off areas. He's actually seen, I think he says that there has been military up there running operations, not on the roads.
Okay, Ben, I got a lot of callers that want to talk to him. What is your point?
Thank you, Joyce. I'm just telling you, this is what's going on in Oregon still. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you for your time.
Ben, before you leave, I want to let the other people know that Oregon is a shall issue on your concealed weapons permit on your handgun license, and they can't deny you unless they have reason, such as being a convicted felon. And on our Second Amendment, I kind of question whether they have the authority to do that even, but that's a whole different topic.
Okay, thank you for that. And let's go to Ken in Michigan. Kenton, West Virginia. You're on the air. Go ahead, please, Kenton, West Virginia.
Yeah, a couple of things. Years ago, I lived in Ireland, and they had a big case in England where Maggie Thatcher made a lot of people in the city of London very rich, and so they went out and bought a bunch of land in the countryside and played country squire and then began fencing off their property. And people in the villages out there would be like it wouldn't be a road like we would call them for cars. It would just be a footpath like 1,000 years ago people would walk from here to there. and they started restricting movement, and they took it to the High Court in London, and I'm sure it was somewhere they found a case in English common law, and they said that's a road, it's been a road forever, and you have no right to stop it. So once a year, they all get together and walk these roads just to prove it's a road. And in Madrid, Spain, once a year, shepherds bring their sheep through Madrid, so just to prove it's a road. So you need to organize marches, I think.
All right. Thank you very much for the phone call. Any comment, Sheriff?
I would. And if the people would take a minute and read the Declaration of Independence, you could hear the tone of the people that penned that document. You can hear the tone in the way they worded it, that they were oppressed. And I think that's where we're at now. And just different times, different segment in the time clock.
Absolutely.
We're still looking at.
We're ready. We want our plastic pitchforks and torches to prove that we're upset. We'll be back after this 1 minute, 10-second break. A few more minutes with the sheriff. And also, the national parks now belong to the United Nations. It is part of the Biosphere Project, and I will pass this on, Cynthia. Thank you very much. I'll pass it to the sheriff. Welcome back to the Power Hour. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for caring about your world. We have Sheriff Glenn Palmer joining us from Grant County, Oregon, and so glad that he is there. He is standing for his people, and he is saying no to the Federal Forest Service that's coming into the area. He's saying no, and we'll follow that with him as it takes place in his county, or as he hopefully defeats the federal government on that issue. John Stokes' email: where was the real collateral value behind this debt? The standard answer to that question was the natural resource and other assets of the U.S. provided the collateral value backing the Treasury debt. Bondholders were assured that there was far more oil, gas, gold, silver, iron, copper, timber, and other resources and resource values in the federal lands of the western U.S. and Alaska than was the debt. Bondholders were, if anything, over-collateralized. And, of course, this all goes to the issue of the national parks now belonging to the United Nations under the auspices of the Biosphere United Nations Biodiversity Treaty. I'll let that go for now, and let's go to Jim in PA. Jim in PA, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thanks, Joyce. Sheriff Palmer, my hat's off to you, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's guys like you, Sheriff DeMayo and Sheriff Mack, that have are really a credit to your profession. I know
yes.
Congress, they advised us to get the sheriffs involved. And at that time, we started a sheriff brigade here in Pennsylvania. And we approached our sheriff. We've talked to him. I've even given him a copy of an autographed Sheriff Mack book. He's not receptive. He won't do his job. So, long story short, I'm in the process now running for sheriff here in Jefferson County, Pennsylvania. I just wanted to say...
Wonderful. Jim, you're running in what county?
Jefferson County, Pennsylvania.
Fantastic. Okay.
Good luck to you.
I'm taking my oath, and I will not violate that oath.
Wow, that's awesome, man. I am so impressed. Well, see, you all are sparking a lot of inspiration among the people that are listening to you. So, I mean, here you got a guy running for sheriff now as a result of having heard Sheriff DeMayo and Richard Mack and yourself. This is wonderful. This is what it's all about. And all of us out there that can't run for sheriff need to know what we can do also. Thank you. Jim, did you want to say anything else?
Just that these guys are great. We need more sheriffs to stand up. And, Sheriff Mack has that book. It's Victory for State Sovereignty. It's a 16-page book that everybody needs to read. Justice Scalia spells it out plain as day. The federal government cannot come in here and tell the states what to do, especially not the sheriffs.
All right. Thank you very much for the phone call. Sheriff, any response to that?
Oh, boy. I don't know if he knows what he's getting himself into.
But he's doing the right thing.
I respect that. And you know what? That's our elective process. And,
that's right.
Anybody that's going to stick their neck out and think they're going to make a difference, my hat's off to you. And it's only just begun, as Karen Carpenter used to sing.
Yeah. Well, all I can say is you go, Jim. We support you.
Cut out for him.
Yeah, in Jefferson County, PA. Let us know what we can do to support you. Let's see, Allison. Let me go to Ed in Texas first here. Ed, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Okay. I had a question for the sheriff. I don't know if you guys noticed, but about a year and a half ago, there was all across the country, every major city, basically the sheriffs were resigning or being replaced. And from the research that I did by looking at the sheriffs that they were being replaced by, it looked like they were more sympathetic to basically what we're saying that the sheriffs now aren't doing. They aren't protecting the Constitution. So I was wondering if the sheriff could comment on that.
Oh, boy. I'm not sure what to say. I don't know if I missed your question.
Well, were you aware that sheriffs were resigning at one time, evidently in numbers? I'm not familiar with that.
You know, one of the things that I would like to say, I guess, is that some states are looking at doing away with their sheriffs or having them appointed, and that is one of the worst things you could do because you're relinquishing the power of the people to somebody that's appointed. And if people want to maintain control of their government, they have to have the ability to put the people in there that will do what they want them to do and act the way they want them to act.
Can you stay with us for about 3 more minutes? Can you stay with us for 3 more minutes? All right, we'll be right back after this 3-minute break, and we'll take Allison, Wisconsin, final caller for our guest today. Welcome back to Power Hour, 8 minutes after the hour. I know we're entering into the next hour, but we just don't get sheriffs like Sheriff Palmer on the program very often. And I know that our guest coming on, Mia Strong, is also interested in this very thing of how do we stand up. So I want to go to a caller first, and I have a question, one final question for you, sir. If we could go to, let's see, we've got Alice in Wisconsin. Alice, go ahead, please. You're on with Sheriff Palmer.
Yes, I thank that man. I can't tell you how much.
No kidding.
He's right on, absolutely right on. And I had the good fortune of learning over 30 years ago from a sheriff that used to be a sheriff of Battle Mountain, Nevada. And he then became a counsel for the teachings that he was doing and so on and so forth. But anyway, they taught what happens when the regions came in from the United Nations, which is underneath the, regional arrangements. That's
right.
What I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say everything so fast, and I hope I can get it out. Anyway.
Well, let's just go to the bottom line then.
Okay,
it is
the
United
bottom
Nations.
line is we're under regional government is what this man taught. He and other people, they were with the Committee to Restore the Constitution. And your sheriff that you got here said these things are illegal. They are. We were put in regions. That's probably why you see 2 sets of lines, red ones and whatever, because one's the regional area and one's the window dressing county or state.
Right.
But the Title 18, he told us, Title 18, Section 2384, tells that those regions, because of, like your sheriff there understands, they're illegal. They're ultra vires.
Okay, all right. Let me go to the sheriff then. Sheriff, do you want to respond to what she had to say?
You know what? I'm not that well versed in what she's talking about.
Okay, but the regions might be interesting to look at from the standpoint of how this is all taking place. And I thank you very much for that. All goes back to the Biodiversity Treaty. And Alice is, boy, I'll tell you, this woman has educated herself. My final question to you is, we are all people that are freedom-loving, honest, motivated people in the right way. We're not terrorists. We're not bad guys. We're not trying to do anything to anyone other than to preserve the freedom that this country was founded on. We're getting frustrated. We're getting furious. We're getting anxious. We're getting upset. We see what's happening. Do we go and tell our sheriff and say, Sheriff, I need to tell you, I'm at the point of saying, I want to do something. I want to do what is right, and I want to restore the confidence in this country that we should be having right now. We can't even get a president that whether he's president or not. Everything is kept up in the air. You know, we're attacking countries for the sake of attacking countries. And where do we go? What do we do? What do we do with all this frustration? What do you do as a sheriff with all this frustration?
The last thing, Joyce, that I want to do is see anybody get hurt or killed over this. And I've shared with the Forest Service those same sentiments. And there's a way that we can communicate amongst ourselves and try and move forward with this. But we are backed into a corner, and people are desperate. People have lost their houses. People have lost their jobs. You just got to be persistent with your sheriffs, and And if it's the will of the people that they want them to do a certain thing and they won't do it, then there's the elective process, and you need to find a candidate that will stand up and defend the people and their rights. Our freedoms cannot be taken away from us. We can relinquish them if we want, and if you so choose to do that, that would be an individual's right or their prerogative to do that. But if we don't want this to happen, we've got to make a stand and put a stop to, and there isn't any other word for it other than tyranny.
Yes.
It is flat out destroying our country and what our charter and what our Constitution says, and we have got to make a stand and hold firm on it and join together and peacefully protest and educate ourselves. We've got to put a stop to it, and we can't continue to let them take it piece by piece, because when you get down to a certain level, you're going to have a jigsaw puzzle that's missing about half the pieces, and you're not going to know what the picture looks like anymore, and it's going to be gone. There's no way we're going to be able to fix it. And I think we need to make a stand and do it together as a country. I can't do it by myself as a sheriff. I need the people that I support or that support me to help me with this. This is not something that I can do on my own. So the people need to realize that their sheriff is going to need their support and they're going to need their help. And solicit that and ask for that. And if they're not willing, then there is the elective process.
Well, I'd like to think that that works. I think we know that with the electronic voting now, we can sometimes challenge that. But be that as it may, there are people dying for what their beliefs are. There are people that are saying, you will not take my gun away, you will not take away my fill in the blank. And there are people dying for their beliefs. And it's all about standing, and we have to stand together and do the next right thing. You know, the only winning move, and we made a T-shirt out of this at the Power Hour, the only winning move is not to play the game. And I just want to say thank you to you, sir.
One final word.
Yes.
When you play the game, and especially at the Forest Service level, if you play by their rules, you're going to lose. They've got it set up to where we cannot win. And that statement you made, Joyce, is exactly right.
But is that not the way it is with every law enforcement, every governmental regulatory board? If the only winning move is not to play their game, and that's why we are standing with all these people. You've got thousands of people behind you right now, Sheriff. I want you to know that. Thousands of people across the country, not just in Grants County. You've got thousands and thousands of people that are saying, you go, Sheriff. We're behind you. That means you've got to go to your local sheriff, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to support him or her, and you have got to get behind them, whether it means financially supporting their campaign. I supported my sheriff, and I sent him a letter and said, you go, and sent him the sheriff book, and I know he read it. So that's what it's all about, listeners, is we've got to do it local. And, sir, we support you, we thank you, and we encourage you in any way that we can, and we want to have you back on again and hear about your success in your county.
All righty. Well, I thank you for the opportunity to speak to your listeners, and maybe some other day that I can come back on and let you know where we are with this, and I'd like to hear other comments. And if people want to send me an email or comment, they can go to OregonSheriffs.org and comment to me through that, or Joyce, I wouldn't mind you giving out my email.
Okay, I'll pass on the emails to you then. OregonSheriffs.com, you said?
.org.
OregonSheriffs.org. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. You go and be strong and stand, because we're all behind you.
All righty. And I'd like to say thank you to Sheriff Mack, and he's been kind of a mentor to me and a person with some advice every once in a while, and taking time out of his busy schedule to shoot me an email every once in a while, maybe a phone call here and there. And I've actually had him here in our county put on a public presentation, and he can't do it by himself either, and he needs the support of the people, and just as much as any other sheriff across the state.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have a couple of women in your county that we've had on the program here. Do you want to give their names out that have been so supportive of us? Well, we'll leave that.
I don't know if they're from our county, but one of them's a minister and the other's a hairdresser.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing people, aren't they?
They're actually from the west side over, and they're about an 8-hour drive from here.
Oh, really?
Oma was just at my house Saturday, maybe Easter Sunday.
Loma Wharton, she is an incredible lady, isn't she?
Yep. I love her.
And these women have done an amazing job, and they're doing it, listeners, and you can too. If you stand and then you stand. The only winning move is not to play the game. Would you like one of those T-shirts, sir?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll get it to you. You have a blessed day, and thank you for joining us in the Power Hour.
Keep up the fight.
We will. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Listeners, this is so incredibly important. To get a sheriff to come on the program that's saying no to the feds, whether it's the Forest Service or whatever, it is a beginning. It needs to be done, and we need your support also.